You probably think you need to keep the conversation going, that if you stop talking, if you stop texting, if you let even a little silence happen, you'll lose her interest. So you fill the gaps. You reply fast. You double text. You say something, anything, just to avoid that moment where nothing is happening. Because silence feels like something is going wrong, like she's getting bored, like she's losing interest, like you're about to be forgotten. But what if that's not true? What if the moment you stop talking is actually the moment she starts thinking about you? Because silence doesn't push people away. Most of the time, it reveals how they actually feel. You've probably been in this position before. You're talking to a girl you like, and at the start, everything feels easy. Replies are quick. Conversations flow. There's energy on both sides. But then something changes. Her replies slow down. She takes longer to answer. Her messages get shorter. The energy starts to fade, and you notice it immediately. So you try to fix it. You put in more effort. You send longer messages. You try to be more interesting, more engaging, more present. Because you think if you just say the right thing, you can bring it back to how it was before. But the more you try, the more it feels like you're the only one holding the conversation together. Like you're the one chasing, and she's slowly pulling away. And in those moments, silence feels dangerous. Like if you stop talking, everything will fall apart. Most people think the problem is what they're saying. They assume they're not being interesting enough, not funny enough, not confident enough, not attractive enough. So they try to fix it with more words, more effort, more attention, more explanation. They believe if they can just say the right thing, they can bring the interest back. But that's not where the problem is. Because attraction doesn't fade because of one wrong message. And it doesn't grow because of constant talking. In fact, the more you try to force conversation, the more you remove the very thing that creates attraction in the first place: space. Because when there's no space, there's no time to wonder, no time to think, no time to feel your absence. And without that, there's nothing pulling her back toward you. Silence creates curiosity, and curiosity is what keeps someone emotionally engaged. When you're always there, always replying, always continuing the conversation, there's nothing left to figure out. No mystery, no uncertainty, no tension. Everything is predictable. She knows if she sends a message, you'll respond. If she takes hours, you'll still be there. If she gives little effort, you'll make up for it. And at first, that might feel like a good thing. It feels safe. It feels consistent. But attraction doesn't grow in certainty. It grows in the space between. Because when everything is given, nothing feels earned. And when nothing feels earned, it doesn't feel valuable. But the moment you step back, the moment there's a pause, something changes. Now there's space. Space for her to notice. Space for her to think. Space for her to feel the difference between your presence and your absence. And that's where curiosity begins. Because now, instead of just reacting to you, she starts wondering about you. Why hasn't he replied yet? What is he doing? Is he busy or just not interested? And those questions matter, because questions create emotional movement. They pull attention back toward you without you saying a single word. And the longer that silence exists, the more her mind tries to fill it, not with logic, but with feeling. And that's something you can't force with constant messaging. You don't create that by saying more. You create it by knowing when to say nothing. Silence increases your perceived value. Because attention is something people measure, even if they don't realize it. When you're constantly available, constantly replying, constantly giving your time and energy, it starts to feel normal, expected. And anything that feels expected loses its impact. Your attention stops feeling valuable because it's always there. But the moment that changes, the moment your attention is no longer constant, its value changes too. Now it's not guaranteed. Now it's something that can be gained or lost. And that shift matters, because people naturally place more value on what isn't always available. Not because they're playing games, but because rarity creates importance. When she doesn't fully have your attention, she becomes more aware of it. More aware of when it's there and when it's not. And that awareness creates attraction. Because now, instead of feeling like you're always there for her, it starts to feel like she has to meet you halfway. Like she has to invest too. And that's where the dynamic changes. From you chasing to her choosing to engage. And all of that starts with your ability to step back and stay silent. Silence signals confidence, and constant talking often signals the opposite. Because when you feel the need to always reply, Always keep the conversation alive. Always avoid any pause. It usually comes from one place. Fear. Fear of losing her attention. Fear of being replaced. Fear that if you stop, she won't come back. And that fear shows, even if you never say it directly. It shows in how quickly you respond, how much you say, how often you reach out. And over time, that starts to feel like pressure, not attraction. Because confidence doesn't rush. Confidence doesn't force conversation. Confidence is comfortable with silence. It doesn't need constant reassurance. It doesn't need to prove anything. And that energy is felt, not through what you say, but through what you don't say. When you're able to step back, when you're able to not chase every moment, it sends a different message, that your life doesn't revolve around the conversation, that your time has value, that you're choosing to engage, not depending on it. And that's what makes someone lean in, not the effort you force, but the restraint you show. So what should you actually do? Stop trying to fill every silence, not as a tactic, but as a shift in mindset. You don't need to respond instantly. You don't need to carry every conversation. And you definitely don't need to say something just to keep her interested. Instead, slow everything down. Reply when you have something to say, not when you feel like you have to say something. Let conversations end naturally. Don't force another message just to keep it alive. Because a conversation that has to be forced is already losing its value. Give space between interactions, not to play games, but to let the interaction breathe, to let her think, to let her feel your absence, and most importantly, focus on your own time. Be busy with your life, your work, your goals, your priorities. Because when your attention isn't constantly available, it becomes something she notices. And when she notices it, she's more likely to move toward it. Not because you chased her, but because you gave her the space to come to you. Silence isn't empty. It's communication. It shows how comfortable you are, without needing constant attention. It shows that your time isn't something you give away freely. And more importantly, it shows that you don't need to chase connection. Because the truth is, the more you try to hold someone's attention, the more it slips away. But when you stop forcing it, when you allow space, when you're okay with saying less, that's when things start to shift. Because attraction isn't built through constant talking. It's built through presence and absence. Knowing when to engage and when to step back. So the next time you feel the urge to send another message, just to keep things going, pause and let the silence do what it's meant to do.